Welcome back. The Defense Department's at work now on a comprehensive climate risk analysis. The directive comes from an executive order President Biden signed that calls for a full report by the end of May. Erin Sikorsky is Deputy Director of the Center for Climate and Security and Director of the International Military Council on Climate and Security. She's former Deputy Director of the Strategic Futures Group on the National Intelligence Council. Erin, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. This is interesting to me that you write, and your colleague Kate Guy write about the parallel between China and climate change at the same time that American representatives are meeting with Chinese representatives in Alaska today. What's the parallel there in America talking to Chinese diplomats and America talking to whom on climate change?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on to talk about this important issue. I think the parallel is that as important as looking at China is, it's equally important to look at how climate change is shaping the national security landscape. And in fact, you can't divorce the two. So I hope that in the conversations that Secretary Blinken and his colleagues are having today with their Chinese counterparts, that climate change is front and center in the discussion. Similarly, we need to bring as high level of representation to talking to diplomats at the United Nations and elsewhere in other countries about what we're doing on climate change and the security risks posed by climate change.
Who is one of the questions that you and Erin pose and answer in this piece. Another one that you address is what? What should the climate assessment that the Defense Department is preparing, and what should those conversations with the parties that you just discussed comprise?
Sure. So in the climate risk assessment for the department, what we propose is that it must go beyond the direct threats to U.S. military installations and bases from climate change, which of course is an important concern. But our research at the Center for Climate and Security has shown that the threats really go well beyond this. When you look at rising temperatures, extreme weather, sea level rise, it contributes to state fragility around the globe, the risk of conflict, and it even shapes global competition among great powers. And so when you think about examining this issue, you must go broadly and look at integrating the climate modeling with social science and our understanding of risks abroad.
The discussion about what to do is fascinating to me because outside of Washington, the discussion doesn't have anything to do with politics. It has to do with what people are experiencing. For example, watermen over on the Eastern Shore, who are very reliable voters in one party that doesn't really seem to want to do much on climate change right now, understand what's happening. What has to happen in Washington, do you think, to help folks understand that this is a reality that lots of people of lots of political stripes deal with all across the country?
Sure. You know, what we've seen over the past few years in Congress in particular is that climate security, recognizing the security risks, is a bipartisan issue. And when people see the day-to-day threats to their livelihoods, day-to-day threats to U.S. national security, whether that's here within the United States or abroad, there's bipartisan recognition that that climate change needs to be addressed. And the national defense authorization bills for the past few years have passed in Congress with bipartisan support, including measures to address climate security risks. And as more and more Americans experience the issue in their daily lives, you see their political representatives recognizing the importance of doing something about it.
You also write about the when of this analysis, but in the time that we have left, I want to move to the last issue that you and Kate write about, Erin, and that is how should defense leaders undertake this analysis to create a product that stays useful into the future? That strikes me as maybe the most important issue here, is creating a product that's useful today, but that's also useful for the next administration and the administration after that and so on.
Right, exactly. The way to do that is to make sure that this risk assessment is really just the first step, not the last. It needs to be a document that sets the stage for further integrating climate risk analysis into everything the department does going forward. And that's why we argue that you need buy-in from lots of different people within the department, within the combatant commands, and also other agencies within government as you shape this analysis, so they all feel ownership and feel like it addresses the concerns they are most worried about. So you need to create something that can be used in wargaming, can be put in the national defense strategy, can be used in other documents, so everyone sees how these climate risks affect things they care about in their work on national security. And if they do that, I think this document will be a success and it won't just sit on a shelf.
We have about a minute left, Erin. What will you look at when this document comes out to see if the things that you and Kate have envisioned have actually come to pass?
Sure. I would look at three things. One, is it global in scope? Does it look at risks in every part of the world, not just where U.S. Military bases are? That's one. Number two, how long is the time horizon? Does it look out, say, 5, 10, 20 years even to these risks so we can prepare now for those in the future? And then three, who was involved in writing it, and did the process of creating the document actually create knowledge and new staff and people within government who have a say in these issues and a stake in them and can bring that knowledge to bear going forward?
Erin Sikorsky, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.